Writing in this morning's Sun newspaper, Mr Cameron described Labour as a soft touch on immigration during their time in power. So what exactly is the Prime Minister proposing? Well, migrants will lose unemployment benefits after 6 months unless they have a genuine chance of finding work. Number 10 says this will include the ability to speak English. Currently, there is no limit on how long migrants from the European Economic Area can claim job seekers' allowance while looking for a job. The announcement comes ahead of restrictions on Bulgarians and Romanians coming to the UK being relaxed next year, with the government still unclear about exactly how many people will arrive. New migrants will be kept off council house waiting lists in England for at least 2 years, under plans for councils to introduce a residency test. Councils can already do this, but many don't. The fine for companies that employ illegal workers will double to £20,000 to try and clamp down on illegal immigration. There will also be changes to what migrants can claim on the NHS, with David Cameron expected to say that non-EU nationals have to prove they hold health insurance before getting care. Well, with us now is Labour's Shadow Immigration Minister, Chris Bryant, UKIP's Nigel Farage and Heather Rolfe from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research. Welcome to all of you. Heather, has immigration damaged the British economy?
Not at all. It's been very positive for the British economy.
So how big is the problem of benefit tourism, which David Cameron is going to be talking about in this country?
I think it's probably almost non-existent.
Totally exaggerated, and there isn't a problem, Nigel Farage.
In the first few years, after we opened the doors in 2004 to Poland and the other A8 countries, you couldn't claim benefits, of course, until you'd been here for a year and paid tax. That's now changed. You know, you can now access the benefit system effectively from day one. So it's very difficult to judge the figures.
But how big? But that's the thing is,
at the moment,
if it's not a big problem, I mean, no one's saying that there isn't any abuse of the benefit system. I'm sure even Heather wouldn't say that. But this problem, how big is it?
The biggest problem we've got is we've got a massive oversupply in the unskilled labour market, and if you look at youth unemployment trends related to EU workers coming to Britain, you will see a very clear and definite trend. On benefits, the scale of the problem in sheer economic terms at the moment isn't massive, but, and here's the risk is we are letting in next year 2 countries that are very, very much poorer. And people can come, and even if they don't find work immediately, access the benefit system.
Right, but Nigel Farage, the rhetoric that we hear from UKIP and, in fact, the other parties just doesn't match those facts. You yourself have said that economically, benefit tourism hasn't been huge.
I've said economically, huge numbers of young British people have been put out of work, and the idea that what's happened since 2004 has been good for the British economy is certainly not backed up even by the House of Lords Economic Committee, who said perhaps economically it's neutral, but socially, there's no question, we have a problem.
Right, hang on. So economically it's neutral, it's socially that you're worried about. Do you accept Nigel Farage's point that the social burden on services like health and education have been great in some communities?
Possibly in a few communities, but they are very much the exception. I wouldn't expect that any future waves of migration, if they happen from Bulgaria, Romania and successive countries to join the EU, I would not expect that local authorities would not be able to cope, having had the experience now.
We do have a chronic social housing shortage. We do have a huge problem.
Has it been made worse? That's the question, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, well, first of all, Chris Bryant,
sheer numbers game.
Listening to the benefits from immigration and the fact that Heather, who has done a lot of work on this, says that in terms of benefit tourism, it's really almost negligible. What was Ed Miliband saying sorry for?
I think there were there were 2 things that we got wrong when we were in government. First of all, unlike France and Germany and Italy, who said when Poland and Hungary and Estonia joined the European Union that people would be able to go and live in those countries, but they wouldn't be able to work there, we decided to go out on a limb and we let people come here to work from day one. And consequently, that meant that everybody came here. But my worry about Cameron's speech is, you said the thing about JSA is changing. I've got the present rules on job seekers allowance here. I've got the rules here,
right.
And they are job seekers who have registered with Job Centre Plus and have claimed JSA will have a right to reside for initial periods of 6 months. It's exactly the same as the present rule. And my worry about the Prime Minister is he's so desperate to make speeches about this that he's.
But Labour is doing the same, and we've had speeches. Yes, and the question is,
and Nick
is
Clegg's
it
speech
because
was incompetent? He didn't understand.
Hang on, we'll come to Nick Clegg's
migration.
Right, we'll come to Nick Clegg and the Liberal Democrats in a moment. But first of all, why are politicians upping the rhetoric on immigration?
I don't think
why is Labour upping the rhetoric?
I would deny that we're upping the rhetoric. We've made speeches Don't pull that face at me.
Well, except that we've heard more from Ed Miliband in recent times about immigration than we've heard over the last 3 months. We've just heard that actually immigration hasn't had the detrimental effect that politicians are saying.
I mean, I do think that Ed Miliband was wrong to apologise for Labour's record on migration, because if you look back at that time, migration was definitely needed for the UK economy. I mean, across the UK, and particularly in areas like Scotland, where they had a declining population, which migration has now helped to set back on the right track.
But there were effects on workers' wages in this country and on employment Well, I've seen 3 surveys that have shown it's not as dramatic as Nigel would have us believe, but it was certainly there. And I looked at people in my constituency who have found it very difficult to get on either the housing ladder or into work, and I don't think that helped.
Well, let's just come on local authorities, Nigel Farage, because we heard at the weekend, actually, from someone from the Local Government Association saying it is wrong to impose a blanket rule on all councils. They need to decide what is right for their area, because in some areas they need migrants. And you are trying to say...
But woe betide them if they try and treat people from Poland, Lithuania, or come to it next year, Romania and Bulgaria, different from British people. We are part of a treaty organisation that is called the European Union, and we are not allowed to be seen to discriminate in any way in favour of British people over East Europeans. And this really is what this debate's about.
But all these parties are talking about it because in their own private polling, it's very clear that this is an issue that does concern the public. And the public aren't stupid. They do realise that immigration does have an impact on their local services, and it's right and legitimate that politicians debate it.
Thank you all very much.